All right. It is February 23rd, 2023. Thanks, Carl and Rob, for joining. We just were having some interesting conversations, words, language models, text. First, let's quickly, since sometimes you fellows join education, but we are developing a survey that will be like an rolling open-ended survey that will provide an interface and give visibility across systems education's efforts. So I guess two questions that first, and I'll put the link here in the chat. The first is looking at the list of questions, which here it's shown in a table form. And here's like the actual codiform itself. And then here's what the front end would look like. It doesn't do anything right now, but it's analogous to the interface that we have for yearbooks, except here it's form entries that are being pushed into a systems education interface that could then be filtered by different things. So the two questions that I have for you are, when considering systems education programs, what questions do we want to make sure to ask? Just in general, and then specifically for this knowledge engineering side that we're in right now, might we want to ask anything about resources or collections? The primary focus is about basically the organization information, just name and contact. Program name, type, length, associated certifications or degree, number of students and teachers per year, prerequisite and completion requirements, skills of graduates, projected job opportunities, methods, the offering of a consultancy, cost and financing, what language of instruction, and what is the computational basis of the program. And then that's like the primary questions, but we can like add them right now if we have something else we want to know. And then further, and this is like a drawing from the 1985 systems education survey, some of the questions that were asked then. Every question's optional. So these questions just ask like what resources are used, lists of publications, research programs, topics. So I know it's probably just a lot of info, but like, is there any question or topic, a free response or categorical or a number that you feel like would help sift through systems education's opportunities so that people could go to an interface and then we could have, these are free opportunities. These are just PhD programs. These are just programs with such and such method. So have sub views and allow people to kind of like in a neutral way, self-reported in a neutral way, engage with different opportunities.
And we're looking at specifically at like the organization program level, or like we want to try to, if for a particular person filling it out, to know what membership organizations they're part of, or is that like another phase?
Yeah, we talked about a few, like how, like, do they have to be about systems and all of this? And I mean, as it's structured, it asks about what organization and what is the program being offered.
Okay, that's something completely different. Okay.
So, but similar forms and censuses could be used, but this is in large part based upon an earlier 1985.
Okay.
Like the initial questions were from a 1985 ISSS survey.
Okay.
And then we added some more questions, but are there, if somebody was wanting to learn systems and wanted to enter into some sort of program or workshop or something, is there some criteria that you would want to know that we're not currently asking about? Like some differentiator or relevant piece of information?
I'm trying to log into the form now, but haven't got there yet. So just to sort of repeat, I think the clarification, this is aimed at higher education. So in UK parlance, undergraduate level and above, to masters and then PhDs, possibly diplomas and certificates.
It asks if the certificate is provided, but like, and we do imagine that many institutions we reach out to will be undergraduate and master's and PhD, but also we want to include like Santa Fe Institute Summer School or other
institutions, organization,
other
private,
yeah, and even if it's not a technical, I mean, it's not a degree, but just there's some program that you either you pay for or not, but you do some program, there's some prerequisites, you do something in the program, you complete it, and then you have some new skills or some new outcomes.
And you would be it'll be open to anyone, but are you aiming at the administrators of the programs or the presenters or the lecturers rather than the students who might be attending the program?
To complete the survey or to use this resource?
To complete it.
Good question. I guess a student could do it. And that's why I also ask like who's completing the survey, and that won't be distributed. But I think it makes sense to at least verify that, like, I mean, someone says, oh, this is, systems program at XYZ. It's like, is it though? So we will, before we push to the public interface, we'll verify with the contact information that it is the right information. But and so I imagine that some administrator or central faculty, they're all optional, and hopefully like we'll get a few in there. And then when we'll circulate it more broadly, all ISSS members and social media and so on, and people will be like, oh, I want my program to have like the most comprehensive answers so that people can type in a keyword and find what they're looking for. If you just say, here's the name and it's a PhD program, well, people aren't going to find it by the keyword. But the more information that's provided, then the better people are going to be able to, who are like already with intent to enter a systems education program, can find that resource.
Okay. Just off the top of my head, because I haven't got direct access, but you've got the organization, you've got the program, if you like, the course title, which year it's running or which period it's starting, because they might run it each year and give it a slightly different emphasis. You've got a web address where they can go and find more information, maybe. Whether the location, whether it's in person or whether it's available as a MOOC or online, the format and the target audience.
Okay, I'll add that as a specific drop down option. Or is it? Yeah.
And then when you get to metadata, whether the course is active, enrolling, or in the future, basically, or in the past it's finished. I don't know if you're going to do historic data, but this is, I suppose, just a snapshot of what's current at the time. But you might want to do some version control and record control about sort of when it was created and last updated and so on. So that's one set of comments. The other one is just roll it out on some proof of concept target audience first. Some friendly people can get some feedback and adjust accordingly.
Yes, great.
Yeah.
We plan to do that next week in education. So we will.
Yes, one more thing. I put a link to the article and stuff, but like getting some organizational structure or stuff. So is it in a school of computers? Is it in the computer science department? Is it in school of engineering? Whatever, that kind of information, so we get a sense of where they are in the organization.
Thank you.
Because that could be an interesting thing to map out then of where things are, because that article in particular is interesting because it talks about cognitive science and kind of how cognitive psychology is kind of dominated,
Yes.
and kind of going back, and it ties in directly with ISSS because I mean it talks about going back to the Macy conferences and things.
Okay, awesome. I will make sure to add these too. Yeah, so we're just gonna update the survey a little bit, run it with just a few people so that there's 5 or 10, get the feedback, make some tweaks, make the user interface look good and already useful, and then make it and then have the form on the interface. So we just distribute out the interface and say, this is where your information will be posted if you complete it right here. So that kind of just arose from systems education. Of course, immediately it can go in so many different directions, but just like with the knowledge and resource side, it's hard to even know what's out there. And so then we end up like falling back to our heuristics and our networks and just like what we've done, which is not bad in and of itself, but like there literally may be entire systems education's networks that just aren't ISSS members. Doesn't have to be one giant connected component, but I feel like certain things we would at least want to be knowing about.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Apart from that, I think the primary piece to discuss is just how can we make the interface more useful, or how can we provide some input to SCA to help whatever you see as relevant there. Rob.
Sorry, before I move on to the comment about SCA, so are you expecting lists of systems engineering courses or systems dynamic courses, computer systems courses, which there'll be large numbers of, because they're obviously very mainstream courses?
Yeah. This is the educational analog of defining what that systems community knowledge side consists of. So I'm not totally sure, but
Sure.
so yeah, like what if it's application oriented and they say, well, we take a systems approach or we talk about it during the program, but it's not in our materials. That's not the name of the program. So how can we highlight the spotlight of system science and the continuum of things that are just like adjacent, inspired by, not a primary focus? Well, I think we just need to kind of see what is out there and who we get in contact with on this first ping, but then we can leave the form open so that and and like maybe check in with those who have shared periodically, and just try to like use this resource to provide a little bit more continuity in the opportunities people share, primarily on social media platforms that don't have our best interests in mind.
Okay, yeah.
But if you have any other thoughts, you can always email me. But I think in 1 week from today, we will make some changes, fill out the form in the education meeting, and then probably in 2 weeks, send it to ISSS members. So yeah, 3 weeks from now. So during March, but the end of March, we should have handfuls of responses.
And then, well, both the organization, like, what do you see a presence being at the upcoming conference?
The
You got-
ISSS conference.
Right. I'm just curious if you see any
Um,
time wise too, that, you know, with stuff.
like I'm personally not going to that conference.
uh,
So yeah, so it's all good if there's people from these organizations, or you know, but I'm not really using that as it'd be awesome to have the people there be able to look at this resource and make sure that every program was represented who is represented at the conference. But and then in the I'd imagine in the future we could say, let's say we have 30 contact informations for people who are like survey fillers at those organizations,
mm,
and then just let them know about, hey, you might want to let your students know, and here's an upcoming opportunity to submit some paper or something. And it's also, I think, a nice parallelism to have an education's interface and a knowledge engineering interface. So then we have like sort of these two tracks, and then each of those tracks has like a essentially public in this conversation, because an unlisted YouTube video, I believe, is the same as public because the link can be shared. Anything recorded is functionally public. And then the interface is like more intentionally public. Yeah, what do you think, Rob?
Just a word of pause or for reflection. Sorry, a pause for reflection, because in a private emails to you and Peter a week or so ago, I identified an issue with an SCA spreadsheet about personal data on there, and the contact of personal details that might be put forward, for example, from this survey. There's a difference between the person filling it out who can be contacted if there's a private question, and then putting it on the public web. So it would probably be best to have, if anybody's interested in this particular educational course, then here's some contact details, or contact the organization, rather than the form filler's personal email address and details, because they'd be filling it out in a different role. They might be filling it out as a sort of a curriculum overview rather than a first point of contact if anybody's interested in the course.
Thanks. Yes, I certainly have intended that way. This column does not push through, but the organization level contact and then the program name and contact email push through. But it should be written that is where the only contact information.
What I did in my SCA spreadsheet process was have a sort of a release to public process, which takes the base core data and then takes a snapshot of it, and then erases various factors like personal information and private notes, and then that snapshot is put out, with a proviso that this is a snapshot at this point in time. It might not be up to date and so on.
Interesting, because what's on my agenda by the end of the day is to complete privacy training, and I'm in the organizational chain of command of the chief privacy officer and chief data officer of my agency. So yeah, that just how we disclosing information.
Yep. Coda makes it very easy because we can add a column, for example, and edit it here, and just then it doesn't move out to the interface.
Cool.
But that just because something is technically easy doesn't mean that we've checked every box, with the GDPR and everything.
Yeah, in the UK, you have to have a GDPR officer and a published GDPR policy and processes in place in case somebody has a question about anything. Just something to be aware of, especially since we're in the information field.
Yes, definitely highlighting that the long-term contact for the survey is education at ISSS. Yeah, thank you.
And then another part of my organization is all the records management kind of stuff too. So
I think in the release to the perfect public, or in the first stabs at it, is maybe to make it a small release and controlled, rather than a big splash that could get out in the wild and out of control. And then that gives an opportunity for the ISSS to go up the learning curve about some of this.
The way that I have it here, and also the way that we use it in Atlas, is a distribution toggle, and I can add a distribution version too.
Yeah.
So then when something comes in, it's toggled off, and then it doesn't come into the for distribution table. When you toggle it on, it appears there, then that gets pushed out. So things submissions will not be shown on the interface. Then we'll have some process to check that the contact addresses are live and that the information is as they expected. And then we'll move ahead with the distribution. Yeah, but interesting, again, being in the info game, like both education and knowledge engineering are coming down to the accessibility, rigor, coherence of surprise, just whatever the information is. And so many pieces come into it. Challenges that go beyond any organization, because we can't possibly organize the system space. And like a ISSS member has been emailing with Peter and I, like systems resources should be hosted on the site, and you should just check with authors and see if you can redistribute their materials. And it's like, we totally agree.
Yeah.
But how to even get to that stage in the right way and make sure that it's moving like slow enough and seriously enough.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, how's it going with SCA, or what do you think on either from us to you, or some little experiment we can do with the ISSS membership, like send them on a journey with the interface as it is, or what do you think?
So talking about the SCA, or this Systems Community Alliance initiative, there is a website that I'm still in development on, but behind that, as a go-to index, not necessarily a repository of the actual source materials, but as an index or pointer to different source materials in different organizations like the ISSS. One of and it's divided into collections and registers in my mind. Collections are collections of knowledge, digital knowledge assets in the systems community, and registers are just lists. And one of the registers or lists was a list of courses, or several of the lists, sorry, were lists of courses or even events, because, you know, what is education? Webinars on a regular basis, or mini symposiums, or workshops are all education in their way. So what this survey is doing is going community wide, you know, systems community wide, to try and gather, I think primarily at this first cut, higher education courses. And the idea then as a use case was that somebody who's saying, I'd be interested in doing a master's level or a PhD level in this field, maybe near me geographically, or maybe online. What is there, you know, what is the state, and can I see their curriculums and so on? So to be able to have a list like that to go to would be a tremendous asset for the systems community. And this is what the systems education survey is heading towards. So that's fantastic. I'm hoping that will develop into such a register. In terms of sort of a different type of, or wider, or list or associated list of events, like all the webinars, all the conferences that happen, you know, that would be fantastic as well. Someone saying, I'd like to go to a conference at this time, in this place, in this field, and to have a resource that they can search through would be fantastic. With my SCA hat on, I don't really mind who compiles this data, as long as it's done with a sort of a rigor in a connected way for any users, which I'd be happy to help and weigh in with. So this is looking very hopeful. I mean, all the strands that sort of like could come together quite nicely in the future, if we build this right. I think there is a person who compiles a list of systems events out there, and they produce it as a list. I think they also have it mapped to a GIS system, so people can see the different, you know, a map view of it. It'd be great to have a calendar view, but the calendar views can get very noisy. So these are just ideas at the moment, but, you know, collecting the raw data has got to be a must, and it's definitely a gap in the systems knowledge repository at the moment. So this is a great survey, you know, a great start to this. I think I did do something once, just to add a bit more. I tried to scrape any courses, because there's huge databases out there about higher education courses. So I tried to scrape it for anything with the word systems in there. And there were very few core systems science courses now. There were lots on computer systems, you know, that mentioned it, and other use of the word systems. Systems engineering is another one. So that's another way to gather this type of data, maybe, is to access huge existing repositories of all higher education courses out there, and maybe collect information that way. Just thoughts off the top of my head.
Awesome. Yes, definitely with the education survey. First, the programs is where we're beginning. Event and conference is a different game, but as you said, like, is it not a program? Is it not the conference program? It's 3 days long, and, you know, it just, there's different social expectations or so on, but there's probably more overlap than, and especially as micro credentials, maybe it becomes relevant that somebody really did attend this 3-day event, and it becomes less relevant whether they, you know, maybe attended this 2-year program. So then, like, that also made me think, I mean, what fraction of the discourse spaces for systems, like LinkedIn systems groups and stuff, it's just event sharing. We could submit the event once and then just reference the stable event URL. And then like, we don't have to go to this, that, and the other website with a new user interface and make an email account. Just like submit the event once, share the stable link, make it easy. So that's actually a great further
Yeah, and,
step. And even a small group of people who are, I mean, there's so many systems groups that like people are, oh, they're already sharing complexity events, but it's just happening linearly through a forum. But events and conferences go stale very fast. So that is like definitely like a more of an in the loop. Whereas the programs are probably more like a year-to-year time scale we'd want to check in. Whereas events, it's like people might post, oh, it's happening in 12 hours. So we need to be super exact, what UTC time, date in UTC, like it gets that level. Program, a little bit slower game to survey. Carl?
Well, I was just thinking too, well, one of the value adds, that, depending on how difficult it would be, is to kind of identify the early bird discounts in registration too for events.
For sure, like one of the things you do is like what's coming up in the next few months, and can I get the early bird discount, if I'm, get my timing right.
And we got all that kind of data, like if somebody wants to submit a paper for, you got all, kind of the conference deadline, the various deadlines.
Yeah.
There's good out there about that.
Just like the education journey, I have a paper, I think it'll be ready in 6 months. I'd like to have it published in a proceedings this year, but I'm ready to submit it by this date. You'd be on square zero with that question today. So I think anything that could help that search would be useful.
I think you make a good point about the method here and the type of data, in that the courses, probably you're right, they are like 5 years worth of sign off of funding and curriculum development and delivery. And so a survey is an appropriate way to gather that information. Whereas events and courses are almost ephemeral and maybe just a web form for people to self-submit that, or someone monthly sort of trawling through known providers and saying, when's the latest data and so on like that. So a very different way of doing it than a survey.
Oh, and another fun way to actually like make that event one, because the event pool is larger simply than the program pool. I'm just imagining every time somebody posts LinkedIn, this event, you enter the details and then just write the first comment and just say, event looks amazing. I'll be asleep at that time, but I posted it here.
Yeah.
And just, you made the information public. We're curators. We're helping bring visibility to your event. And then someone would go to that event interface, and then they're like, what is this website? Oh, interesting. There's other events that person wasn't telling me about.
Yeah.
That could be a very time effective too. Because you would just have, and then say, yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying that the SCA, what I'm trying to say is that I think it might be best if a neutral party provides that kind of service, because of the sort of rivalries that go on. So it's either a spin-off independent sort of service that delivers that, which is neutral to all parties.
Yeah, like for the ISSS, for our own knowledge archives, we kind of have sovereignty, but then there's the layer across, and then similar, I guess, yeah, somebody who was a moderator regarding events or programs. Oh, no, that they don't really do systems halt distribution.
Uh, I mean, we could also kind of, on one hand, like we've been talking about, it's kind of the looking forward, but then it could also be trying to capture what events have ISSS members been attending? Did they present a paper at a event?
Yeah,
That kind
with
of
a
stuff.
stable link instead of like, when was it that there was some event that we may have talked at? It's like, oh yeah, events, this row, stable URL reference point. We were both there. Remember? Here's the recording of that event. Neither of
Yeah.
us would have had that link. And
Yeah,
so that, who else was
that
there?
literally came up yesterday at the mini symposium. Some things like it turned out one of the people on the call had met the speaker had the wrong time, so they thought it was starting an hour later. So it was like, does anybody have their cell phone number that they could contact them? Type of thing. So we did that in real time yesterday.
I have one colleague working on a project called Portable Communities, where you could take a email list. These are the 100 people who came to this online event, and then use that to do governance and decision making, and basically like upgrade what are just otherwise going to be a transient email list that will never be the same email list of that specific event, and then like figure out how to be like, now what if we wanted to open up a Slack together with the people who are from that event, or we wanted to just like make like offer those people an opportunity to do something to move that community into a different space. That this is very interesting to think about. I think I believe we're starting in the right place with the education one, with the programs, and that because this is a limited number of central programs, we hope. Then this is a great new angle that's, I think, opened. And yeah, very cool. Well, over the coming 2 weeks until the next knowledge engineering, if people have any like ideas for improving the interface, or Rob, if there's any type of SCA assistance, otherwise, perhaps in 2 weeks, let's think about how do we then communicate the interface to the ISSS members, prepare some email in 2 weeks at that meeting, and prepare something that's like, hello, just wanted to share a exciting work in progress with you. Here's where you can start to browse through some of our very own collections. No one has seen this information this way. So whether you're a new member or an old member, hope that this piques your curiosity about what's been done and gives you some ideas about how we could develop this information. Send that out to ISSS members during March, with could be just the interface status as is, or if we had any other records or any other suggestions for visualizations, we can of course have that by the time we send it out. But just sometime in March, plan for short email to ISSS members with the interface.
Question: do you find an email is a good way, or did you like your YouTube shorts that you do?
Oh,
or both?
yeah, good call. Let's so during March, communication to ISSS members. And I mean, since the interface is public, short YouTube video showing the interface, link to interface, ways to contribute. You can join the project where we meet fortnightly and work on this. If you're an organization and you're in an analogous situation, also, figure out how to that secondary part, but maybe there's a group out there who wants to work with SCA, or I can show. It can mention the SCA however you see or not. On one hand, it could just be like, we're doing this at ISSS, and I think that would be accurate. Also, it could be said, this is part of a broader alliance. Here are like some of our peer organizations that we expect to have similar kinds of access. But I also don't want to, of course, make it sound like any other organization is going to have any specific kind of interface or accessibility for their materials.
Okay, we can think about that as well, and maybe Reland's next email, in probably beginning of April, could put a piece in there as well in the newsletter.
Cool. All right. Any other comments before we end?
Amazing
Okay.
conversation.
Great times. Thank you, fellows. Farewell.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks a lot. Bye.